Emotional regulation is a huge part of mental health, but for neurodivergent individuals, it can present some really unique challenges. If you're a parent or caregiver, understanding how a neurodivergent brain experiences and processes emotions is the key to creating a supportive environment where your child can thrive emotionally. This isn't just about stopping outbursts or making kids be calm. It's about recognizing, understanding, and responding to their feelings in a flexible and healthy way. Brains with autism, ADHD, or sensory processing differences often experience emotional signals differently. This means that the usual ways we think about self-regulation might not work and could even make things worse. So what exactly is emotional regulation? It's how we influence which emotions we feel when we feel them and how we show them. We learn it ourselves, but it's also relational. We learn by navigating the world and the people around us. For neurotypical kids, these skills develop over time through social learning and experience. But for neurodivergent individuals, things like sensory perception, executive function, and interoception, that's our internal body sense, can make it all much more complicated. This is where caregivers become so important. You play a critical role in what's called co-regulation. This is where you support your child in managing their emotions through your own modeling, guidance, and by structuring their environment. Co-regulation is the foundation for self-regulation later on. And for neurodivergent children, it's not just a nice-to-have, it's a developmental necessity. It acknowledges their unique processing speed, sensory sensitivities, and the cognitive load they might be carrying. Neurodivergence covers a wide spectrum, from autism and ADHD to dyslexia and sensory processing disorders. While every person is different, we do see some common patterns in how they process emotions. First, there's heightened emotional intensity. Many neurodivergent people feel emotions much more strongly than their neurotypical peers. This can look like rapid mood shifts or really big reactions to what seem like small stressors. Then there's Alexithymia, which is a difficulty in identifying and describing one's own emotions. It's common in autism, but also shows up in other neurodivergent profiles. If a child can't name what they're feeling, it's incredibly hard for them to communicate their needs or manage their behavior. Sensory sensitivities also play a huge role. Things like loud noises, bright lights, or even an itchy tag on a shirt can trigger or amplify an emotional response, making a small annoyance feel like a major crisis. And finally, differences in executive function. Things like planning, impulse control, and mental flexibility deeply affect emotional regulation. For example, a child with ADHD might have a hard time shifting their attention away from something frustrating, which can lead to prolonged distress. It's so important to remember that emotional dysregulation in neurodivergent kids is rarely a choice or just bad behavior. It's a reflection of their neurological and sensory reality. A key piece of this puzzle is interoception, our sense of the internal state of our body. It's what lets us notice a racing heart, a tight stomach, or shallow breathing, and connect those signals to feelings like fear, anger, or anxiety. Many neurodivergent individuals have atypical interoception, meaning they struggle to identify these body cues. Without that feedback, they might not recognize they're becoming distressed until they're already overwhelmed, which is why an emotional escalation can seem so sudden and unpredictable. As a caregiver, you can help build this awareness. You can use a feelings chart that links emotions to body sensations, like, when my chest feels tight, I might be anxious. You can also encourage simple mindfulness exercises, like a body scan to notice tension, or just practice labeling internal states when things are calm. These activities help bridge the gap between a physical feeling and an emotional one. It's also crucial to understand the difference between emotional regulation and self-control. Self-control is often about stopping impulses or just behaving. Emotional regulation, on the other hand, is about managing the intensity and duration of the emotion itself. Neurodivergent children are often criticized for lacking self-control when the real issue is a struggle to regulate their emotions. You can shift your approach by first validating their feelings before correcting behavior. Something like, "I see you're really frustrated. Let's figure this out together." This reframes an outburst from an act of defiance to a form of communication, which calls for empathy and support, not punishment. As a parent or caregiver, you are the absolute center of your child's emotional regulation journey. Co-regulation, where you actively help your child manage their emotions, is essential for building those long-term self-regulation skills. It has three main parts. The first is attunement, paying close attention to your child's emotional state and responding with sensitivity. This means noticing the subtle cues, their posture, facial expression, or tone of voice. This tells your child their feelings are valid and that you understand. The second part is modeling. You can show them healthy ways to regulate by talking about your own feelings and what you do to cope. For example, you could say, "I'm feeling a little stressed, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths." Children learn so much just by watching us. The third component is scaffolding. This means providing support that you gradually reduce as your child develops their own skills. It could be verbal prompts, visual aids, or practicing coping skills together. Over time, they start to internalize these strategies. So, what are some practical strategies you can use? First, label and validate emotions. Help your child connect a word to their feeling. Using emotion charts or feeling faces can be a great visual tool. And always validate what they're feeling. Saying, "I can see you're upset because that noise is too loud," reduces shame and builds trust. For kids who struggle to find the words, you can explicitly teach them to connect body sensations with emotions, like linking clenched fists to anger. Next, use structured routines and predictable environments. Neurodivergent kids often thrive on consistency. Visual schedules, timers for transitions, and clear step-by-step instructions can reduce anxiety and prevent emotional overload. Creating a designated calm-down space can also be incredibly helpful. Predictability doesn't eliminate emotions, but it minimizes the unnecessary stressors that can trigger dysregulation. Sensory supports are also vital. Since sensory input can make emotions feel more intense, providing accommodations is a game changer. This could be noise-canceling headphones in loud places, a weighted blanket for calming pressure, or fidget tools to help with focus. By proactively meeting their sensory needs, you're creating a solid foundation for co-regulation. Mindfulness and body awareness practices are also fantastic. Simple breathing exercises, body scans, or movement breaks like stretching can strengthen that connection between body sensations and emotional states. Even just a few minutes a day can make a big difference over time. And finally, teach problem-solving and coping strategies. You can guide them by first naming the problem, like, "You're frustrated because this puzzle is hard." Then, brainstorm solutions together. "Should we take a break or ask for help?" The key is to practice these strategies when things are calm, so they're easier to access during stressful moments. It's also important to avoid a few common pitfalls. Try not to focus only on the behavior while ignoring the emotion underneath. Using punishment for dysregulation can actually make things worse by increasing anxiety. And remember that building these skills takes time. Expecting rapid self-regulation isn't realistic. The journey requires empathy, validation, and a lot of guided practice. The best way to make this work is to integrate these strategies into your daily life. You could do a quick check-in each morning, use a visual emotion scale before homework, or build movement breaks into long tasks. By consistently reinforcing these skills, you help your child build coping strategies that will last a lifetime. Understanding the unique way neurodivergent minds regulate emotions is the first and most important step. Have you ever seen your child overwhelmed by a big feeling, but when you ask what's wrong, they just say, "I'm fine," or maybe they don't say anything at all? This can be incredibly confusing and even frustrating for parents. You see the distress, the clenched fists, the tears, or the sudden withdrawal, but you can't get a clear answer. If this sounds familiar, you might be dealing with something called alexithymia. Alexithymia is a big word for a simple concept: having difficulty identifying, understanding, and describing your own emotions. It's like your feelings don't have words. While it's often linked with autism, it can also be present in individuals with ADHD, sensory processing differences, and other neurodivergent profiles. A child might be experiencing intense emotions, but because they can't communicate them, it all comes out in unexpected emotional outbursts or a complete shutdown. Understanding what alexithymia is and how it works is the first crucial step toward helping our children build emotional literacy and regulation skills. So, how can you recognize alexithymia in your neurodivergent child? It shows up in a few key ways. First, there's the difficulty labeling feelings. A child might genuinely struggle to tell the difference between anger, anxiety, or sadness. They might say, "I'm fine," when they're clearly upset, or they might confuse excitement with anxiety because both make their heart race. Another sign is a limited verbal expression for emotions. They might have a very small vocabulary for feelings. Even when they feel something strongly, they just don't have the words to explain it. Instead, you might see gestures, specific behaviors, or even physical complaints like a tummy ache, which are their way of communicating what's happening inside. You might also notice very concrete thinking about emotions. Instead of understanding feelings as internal states, they might describe them in terms of physical sensations or things that happened outside of them. For instance, your child might talk about their racing heart but not connect it to the feeling of anxiety. Finally, alexithymia can make it tough for children to recognize emotions in other people. They might have a hard time reading facial expressions or interpreting someone's tone of voice. This can, of course, lead to social misunderstandings and difficulties in their friendships. All these patterns make emotional regulation much more complex. If a child can't identify what they're feeling, they can't use strategies to manage that feeling, which makes emotional overload much more likely. Now, let's connect the dots between alexithymia and emotional regulation. To regulate your emotions, you first need to be aware of them. But in alexithymia, that awareness is compromised. A child might feel a huge wave of emotion, but have no idea what caused it. This makes it almost impossible for them to self-soothe or figure out how to solve the problem. For example, a child who feels anxious but can't name that feeling might express their distress through aggression, withdrawal, or repetitive behaviors. As caregivers, it's so easy to misinterpret these actions as defiance or attention-seeking. But in reality, these behaviors are signals. They are a form of communication. Research shows that alexithymia is linked to heightened physiological arousal. This means that a child might not recognize the early warning signs of their emotions escalating. By the time the behavior we see emerges, like a meltdown, the child is already in a state of complete emotional overload. At that point, trying to intervene is much, much harder. Recognizing these patterns allows us to respond with empathy and proactive support rather than with frustration or punishment. So, what can we, as parents and caregivers, do to help? We play a huge role in helping children with alexithymia develop their emotional literacy. Let's talk about some practical strategies. First, we need to actively build their emotional vocabulary. We can't assume they'll just pick it up. Using tools like emotion cards or charts with faces and labels can be a game changer. These visuals help children connect a feeling to a word and a facial expression. Reading storybooks that feature characters experiencing different emotions is another fantastic way to provide concrete examples and open up a conversation. You can also try simple daily check-ins. Just a brief, structured moment to talk about feelings can provide consistent practice. For kids with limited verbal skills, you can pair the words with gestures or icons to reinforce their understanding. Next, we can help them link their bodily sensations to their emotions. Since children with alexithymia often notice the physical cues first, we can guide them to make the connection. For example, you can say, "I notice your heart is beating fast. Sometimes that happens when we feel excited or anxious. What do you think it is for you right now?" Or, "Your tummy feels tight. Could that be worry?" Activities like body scans, where you guide them to notice sensations from their toes to their head, or simple breathing exercises can help them associate these physical feelings with emotional states. Another powerful strategy is using structured language for emotional expression. This takes the cognitive load off the child and gives them a framework to express themselves. You can use sentence starters like, "I feel because," or "My body feels when I am," or "I need to feel better." At first, you'll be guiding them through it, but over time, these scaffolds help them internalize the process of recognizing and sharing their feelings on their own. Visual supports are also incredibly effective, especially for neurodivergent kids who thrive on concrete and predictable information. Think about using a mood meter or an emotional thermometer, where they can point to how they're feeling and how intense it is. You could also associate colors with emotions, like red for anger, blue for sadness, and yellow for happy. This helps them identify their state quickly. For coping strategies, a visual sequence chart can break down the steps. First, notice your feeling. Second, choose a coping tool. Third, practice it. These tools bridge the gap between their internal world and their ability to express it. One of the most important concepts for parents to understand is co-regulation. Instead of expecting a child with alexithymia to regulate themselves immediately, we need to guide, model, and scaffold their emotional responses. This starts with your active emotional presence. This means paying close attention to your child's cues, validating their feelings no matter what they are, and responding with empathy. For example, if your child slams a door in frustration, instead of punishing them, you might say, "I see you are really upset. Let's take a few deep breaths together before we talk." Or if your child withdraws and goes silent, you could gently offer, "It seems like something is bothering you. Would you like to show me how you feel on this feeling chart?" This approach tells them their emotions are valid and accepted, which reduces their anxiety and makes it safer to express themselves. Modeling your own emotional expression is also key. Our children learn by watching us, so name your own feelings out loud. "I'm feeling a little frustrated because I spilled my coffee." Demonstrate how you cope in real time. "I'm going to take a deep breath to calm down." This normalizes having emotions and shows them that feelings can be managed constructively. Let's also talk about integrating sensory supports. For many neurodivergent kids, the world can be a sensory minefield, which directly impacts their emotional state. Tools like weighted blankets, fidget toys, or noise-reducing headphones can help manage their arousal levels and prevent emotional escalation before it even starts. By using these sensory and visual supports, we give them tangible tools to bridge that gap between what they feel inside and how they express it outside. Embedding these strategies into daily routines is what makes them stick. Start the day with a morning check-in about how everyone is feeling. Before a potentially stressful task like homework, use an emotion scale to see where they're at. At the end of the day, reflect on the feelings that came up and what strategies helped. Predictable routines, visual schedules, and advanced warnings for transitions also reduce stress and prevent emotional overload. Consistency is everything. It helps children build strong associations between strategies and real-life situations. We also need to support their social understanding. You can do this by discussing characters' feelings in books or movies, pointing out their facial expressions and body language. You can role-play social situations to practice expressing needs and feelings. Ask perspective-taking questions like, "How do you think your friend felt when that happened?" These strategies help children navigate social situations with more confidence and empathy. Finally, and this is so important, We have to encourage patience and self-compassion for our children and for ourselves. Progress with emotional literacy is gradual. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Remember to celebrate the small successes, like when they label one feeling correctly or use a coping tool on their own. Try to see emotional outbursts as communication, not defiance. And above all, be consistent. Your repeated patient practice creates a safe environment where your child can learn to explore and express their emotions. To sum it all up, alexithymia can be a real challenge, but it's one we can face with the right tools and mindset. By building their emotional vocabulary, linking body sensations to feelings, using structured language and visual supports, and practicing co-regulation every day, we empower our children. We give them the tools to navigate their inner world more effectively, laying the foundation for a future of self-regulation and social-emotional success. Have you ever seen a child suddenly go from calm to completely overwhelmed? One moment they're fine, and the next they're shouting, withdrawing, or just seem to shut down. This is often what emotional overload looks like. It's like reaching a tipping point where their emotional system becomes so overwhelmed that managing it feels impossible. For neurodivergent children, this tipping point can be reached much faster. Why? Things like sensory sensitivities, differences in how their brain processes tasks, difficulty identifying their own emotions, and just feeling things more intensely all play a big part. Understanding what's happening under the surface is so important for parents and caregivers. This isn't just a behavior problem. It's a complex interaction between their mind, their body, and their feelings. When everything gets taxed beyond its limit, you might see behaviors like shouting, aggression, or even repetitive movements. Without the right support, these experiences can really impact a child's self-esteem and add a lot of stress to the parent-child relationship. So, what are the mechanisms behind this overload? It's usually a combination of things hitting all at once. First, there's sensory overload. For many neurodivergent kids, the world can be a sensory minefield. Loud noises, bright lights, crowded places, or even an unexpected touch can be intensely overwhelming. This isn't just a preference. It physically activates their nervous system. Their heart rate goes up, their breathing gets faster, and their body goes into high alert. For a child with sensory sensitivities, this physical reaction can make their emotions skyrocket in an instant. Next is cognitive load and executive function. Think about all the mental energy it takes to pay attention, remember instructions, or plan out a task. For children with ADHD or executive function challenges, juggling these demands is incredibly difficult. When their brain is working overtime just to keep up, it leaves very little bandwidth for emotional regulation. The frustration from trying to manage it all can easily spill over, leading to a meltdown or shutdown. Then we have social and emotional stressors. Social situations are complicated. For neurodivergent children, trying to read social cues, handle disagreements with friends, or just respond to unexpected social demands can be totally exhausting. This is even harder for kids who have alexithymia, which is a difficulty in recognizing and describing their own emotions. Imagine feeling this huge, confusing storm of emotion inside you, but not having the words to explain it or even understand it yourself. It's a recipe for overload. And that leads right into the role of alexithymia and emotional awareness. If a child can't recognize the early signs of their own stress or frustration building up, they can't use their coping strategies in time. It's like not noticing the water is boiling until it's already overflowing. The stress just keeps building and building until they hit that tipping point, and by then, it's much harder for anyone to help. The good news is, as parents and caregivers, you can often spot the early warning signs before a full-blown escalation. Look for behavioral cues like increased fidgeting, pacing, or maybe they start making repetitive movements. They might also withdraw and become very quiet. There are physiological signs, too, like a flushed face, rapid breathing, tense muscles, or clenched fists, and listen for verbal cues. It might be a simple, frustrated, "I can't do this," complete silence, or asking the same question over and over. You might also just notice a sudden shift in their mood, like becoming irritable or tearful over something small. Seeing these signs is your signal to step in proactively. So how can we prevent emotional overload from happening in the first place? A lot of it comes down to anticipating triggers and actively supporting regulation. First, think about environmental modifications. You can reduce sensory clutter in your home, create a quiet, low-stimulation area where your child can take a break, or use tools like noise-canceling headphones and soft lighting. Structured routines are also a game changer. Predictable schedules and visual aids help children know what to expect, which minimizes the stress that comes from uncertainty. Giving them a heads up before a change or a new event can also reduce that cognitive load and prevent them from being caught off guard. It's also incredibly helpful to teach coping skills. Explicitly teaching things like deep breathing, counting exercises, or taking a quick movement break gives them a toolkit to draw from. Self-soothing activities like drawing, using fidget toys, or listening to calming music are great too. The key is to practice these strategies when they are calm, so the skills are ready to go when stress starts to build. And finally, monitor their cognitive load. Break down big tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. Offer regular breaks to prevent mental fatigue. Using visual timers can help them see how much longer they need to focus, which can prevent them from feeling overwhelmed by an endless task. But what do you do when your child has already reached that tipping point? The main goal is to help them feel safe and to co-regulate with them. This is not the time to reason with them or try to stop the behavior. Your response can either calm the storm or make it worse. First and foremost, stay calm and attuned yourself. Kids are experts at picking up on our emotions. If you stay calm, it sends a powerful message of safety. Use a low, steady voice, avoid sudden movements, and try to get down on their level so you seem less intimidating. Attunement means you're observing their cues and responding to what they need in that moment without judgment. Next, validate their emotions. You don't have to agree with the behavior, but you can acknowledge their feelings. Simple phrases like, "I can see this is so frustrating for you," or "It looks like your body feels really upset right now," can make a world of difference. It reduces shame and helps them feel understood, even if they can't find the words. If you can, guide them to a safe space. A designated regulation corner or calm down area can be a sanctuary. It should be a predictable place where they know they can go to regulate without punishment or pressure. And don't forget to use sensory supports. During overload, sensory tools can help bring their arousal level back down. A weighted blanket can be very grounding. Fidget toys can give their hands something to do, and noise-canceling headphones can block out overwhelming sounds. These tools help them manage the physical tension and stabilize emotionally. After the storm has passed, the recovery period is just as important. Children often feel tired, confused, or even guilty after an overload episode. This is where your support is crucial. Once they're completely calm, you can gently debrief. You could say something like, "Earlier, you felt really frustrated. What helped you feel calm again?" Or, "What can we try next time to make things a little easier?" This helps them start to recognize their own triggers and what works for them. After a big emotional event, getting back to a predictable routine helps restore that sense of safety and stability, and most importantly, encourage self-compassion. Many neurodivergent children feel a lot of shame after a meltdown. Normalize their experience. Let them know it's okay to have big feelings and that you're there to help them through it. This builds resilience and reduces their fear of future episodes. Over the long term, the goal is to build their emotional literacy and regulation skills, help them connect their bodily sensations to emotional words, expand their toolkit of coping strategies, talk about past episodes to find patterns, and slowly, as they are ready, you can transfer more of the responsibility for regulation from you to them. Remember, consistency and patience are everything. By recognizing the early signs, creating a supportive environment, and responding with calm, validating support, you can empower your child to navigate their intense emotions safely. You're not just managing meltdowns. You're building a foundation of emotional resilience that will last a lifetime. Have you ever tried to correct your child during a meltdown, only to find it makes everything worse? It's a common struggle, but what if there's a better way? Today, we're diving deep into a powerful approach called co-regulation, specifically focusing on why connection before correction is a game changer, especially for neurodivergent children. So what is co-regulation? Simply put, it's the process where caregivers support a child in managing their big emotions until they can learn to do it on their own. Think of it like being an emotional co-pilot. Instead of jumping straight to discipline, co-regulation prioritizes understanding, validating, and guiding your child through their feelings. For neurodivergent kids who might experience intense emotions, sensory sensitivities, or challenges with executive function, this approach isn't just helpful, it's essential. By modeling, scaffolding, and weaving these strategies into daily life, we can help them build resilience, emotional literacy, and true independence. At the heart of effective co-regulation are a few core principles. The first is emotional attunement. This is about being a detective of your child's feelings. It means noticing the subtle cues, a tense jaw, a shift in posture, or repetitive movements that signal something is bubbling under the surface. Once you notice it, you respond with empathy. Something as simple as, "I see that you're feeling frustrated," can make a world of difference. It's about matching their emotional intensity, not minimizing their feelings, but also not amplifying them. This attunement sends a powerful message. Your emotions are safe, they are seen, and they are valid. It builds a foundation of trust that's crucial for learning. This leads directly to our main theme, connection before correction. Imagine your child is having a meltdown because the TV is too loud. The old school response might be to immediately say, "Stop crying, it's not that loud." But with co-regulation, we connect first. We might say, "I can see you're really upset because the noise is too loud for your ears right now." See the difference? We're validating their experience. Only after that connection is made, after they feel heard and secure, do we introduce a solution, like turning down the volume or offering headphones. This approach dramatically reduces defensiveness and makes children, especially those who struggle to identify their own feelings, much more open to guidance. The third key principle is modeling and scaffolding. Children are always watching us. They learn how to handle stress by seeing how we handle our own. When we model calm responses to our own frustrations, we're teaching them a powerful lesson without saying a word. Scaffolding is about providing just the right amount of support. You might start with structured prompts like, "I feel blank because blank," helping them put words to their emotions. Then, as they get more comfortable, you gradually reduce that support. This process ensures they experience success along the way, helping them internalize these regulation strategies for the long haul. Now, let's get practical. How do we put this into action? A huge piece of the puzzle for neurodivergent kids is providing sensory and environmental supports. When a child is emotionally dysregulated, their sensory system is often in overdrive. So, having a quiet, low-stimulation corner they can retreat to is invaluable. Things like fidget tools, weighted blankets, or soft, tactile objects can help ground them and regulate their arousal. Proactively adjusting the environment, like dimming lights or reducing background noise, can prevent emotional overload before it even starts. By addressing their sensory needs first, we create a safe space where they can actually learn. Visual supports are another fantastic tool. Emotions can feel abstract and overwhelming. Visuals make them concrete and predictable. An emotion thermometer or a mood meter can help a child visually identify and communicate how they're feeling, especially if they struggle with words. You can also create step-by-step coping charts that guide them through calming strategies. Think of it like a visual recipe for feeling better. Timers and visual schedules are also brilliant for preventing stress around transitions. When a child knows what's coming next, they feel more in control, which is key to preventing anxiety-induced meltdowns. The language we use is just as important. Structured verbal supports can bridge the gap between a child's internal experience and their ability to express it. Using sentence starters like, "I feel blank when blank," or "My body feels blank because blank," gives them a framework. After an emotional event, you can use guided questions like, "What helped you calm down?" to encourage reflection. It's also helpful to label their physical sensations to connect them to emotions. For example, "Your heart is racing. It seems like you're feeling anxious." This explicit verbal scaffolding helps them build that crucial mind-body connection. Timing is everything. The goal is to intervene early. Pay attention to those subtle cues before emotions escalate into a full-blown meltdown. When you do intervene, match the intensity. Overreacting can escalate the situation, while underreacting can make the child feel dismissed. And throughout it all, your calm presence is your most powerful tool. Your nervous system has a direct impact on your child's. When you stay calm, you co-regulate their physiological state, helping them come back down. So, how do we make this a part of everyday life? By embedding co-regulation into daily routines. Start the day with a simple check-in. How are you feeling this morning? Use a visual mood chart to talk about emotions and anticipate any challenges for the day. Transitions are often major triggers. Give advance warnings. In 5 minutes, we're going to turn off the tablet. Use timers and visual countdowns. Before the transition, you could even guide them through a quick breathing exercise. These predictable cues reduce stress and empower kids to regulate proactively. Throughout the day, create opportunities for quick, low-pressure emotional check-ins. For nonverbal children, you can use gestures or icon-based charts. Prompt them to think about their coping strategies. Which tool helped you stay calm in the car today? These frequent check-ins reinforce emotional literacy and provide real-world practice. Let's walk through a step-by-step intervention for when you see your child starting to get dysregulated. First, observe the early cues. Notice the fidgeting, the clenched fists, the change in their breathing. Second, validate the emotion without judgment. "I see you're frustrated because that puzzle piece isn't fitting." Third, engage sensory supports. Offer a weighted blanket, a fidget toy, or guide them to their calm-down space. Fourth, guide their emotional expression. Use a visual chart or a simple prompt. "Can you point to how your body feels?" Or, "Use your words to tell me what's wrong." Fifth, model calm regulation yourself. Take a slow, deep breath and say, "I'm going to take a deep breath to help my body stay calm." Finally, after they've regulated, reinforce their success. "You did a great job noticing your feelings and using your calm-down steps. That was awesome." Integrating visual and sensory supports really enhances this whole process. Mood meters, coping cards, and sensory tools aren't just add-ons. They are essential components that make abstract emotional concepts concrete and manageable. Combining these approaches gives your child multiple ways to access regulation, catering to their unique learning style and sensory profile. Don't forget the power of play. Play is a child's natural language, and it's a fantastic, low-pressure way to teach co-regulation. You can role-play different emotional scenarios, helping them rehearse coping strategies. Use puppets or storytelling to explore the connection between feelings and actions. Even movement games can teach body awareness, helping them recognize the early physical signs of an emotion. Finally, consistency is key, which means collaboration is crucial. Share your strategies, visual tools, and emotion charts with your child's teachers and therapists. When everyone is on the same page, the child receives a clear, consistent message, which reduces confusion and accelerates learning. A coordinated approach ensures they feel supported in every environment. Remember, co-regulation is the bridge to self-regulation. Over time, with your consistent support, Your child will develop emotional awareness, problem-solving skills, and the autonomy to manage their feelings independently. Your role is to provide that safe, supportive environment, feeding your prompts as they grow more confident. To sum it all up, teaching co-regulation by prioritizing connection before correction is a powerful, empathetic way to support neurodivergent children. By observing and validating their emotions, using structured language and visual aids, integrating sensory supports, and embedding these strategies into daily life, you are not just managing difficult moments. You are laying the foundation for lifelong emotional competence, resilience, and independence. And now we're diving into a topic that can be a game changer for parents and caregivers of neurodivergent children: using visual tools to make emotions visible and manageable. If you have a child on the autism spectrum with ADHD or who struggles to identify their own feelings, you know that abstract concepts like emotions can be incredibly difficult to grasp. So let's explore how simple visual aids can build a bridge to emotional understanding. Many neurodivergent children are visual thinkers. They process information far more effectively when it's presented in a concrete, predictable way, rather than through spoken words alone. Think about it. Emotions are invisible, constantly changing, and confusing. Visual supports take these abstract feelings and turn them into something tangible that a child can see, point to, and understand. This simple act of making an emotion visible can empower them to recognize, express, and eventually regulate what's happening inside. So, why are these tools so powerful? First, they make abstract concepts concrete. An emotion chart with colors or faces gives a child a solid reference point. Red might mean angry, blue could be sad, and yellow can represent happy. Suddenly, a fleeting internal feeling has a name and a face they can point to. This is especially crucial for children who may have Alexithymia, a condition where they have difficulty identifying and describing their own emotions. Second, visual tools provide predictability and structure. Life can feel chaotic for a child who struggles with executive function or sensory processing. Visual schedules that outline the day's activities or step-by-step guides for a task reduce that feeling of uncertainty. When a child knows what's coming next, they feel more secure and are less likely to become overwhelmed, especially during tricky transitions like leaving the park or starting homework. Third, these tools foster autonomy. Instead of relying on a parent to guess what they're feeling, a child can use a visual chart to communicate their needs independently. This builds their confidence and self-awareness. They learn to check in with themselves and take an active role in managing their own emotional state. Finally, visual cues pair beautifully with sensory supports. You can link a picture of a calm-down strategy, like deep breathing, with the physical sensation of holding a squishy toy. This combination anchors the abstract idea of calming down to a real physical experience, making it much easier for a child to learn and apply the strategy when they need it most. Now let's talk about the different types of visual tools you can use. One of the most popular is the emotion chart or thermometer. These can be incredibly simple yet effective. You can use a color-coded scale, like a traffic light system where green is calm, yellow is getting agitated, and red is overwhelmed. Or you could use a chart with different emoji faces showing various feelings, from happy to sad to frustrated. An emotion thermometer is another great option, allowing a child to move an arrow up or down to show how big their feeling is. Is it a small sadness or a very big sadness? These tools give children the vocabulary to label their feelings, which is the first step toward managing them. Next up are step-by-step regulation guides. When a child is in the middle of a big emotion, their thinking brain often goes offline. A simple visual guide can walk them through the process of calming down without them having to think too hard. It might be a flowchart that says, Step 1, notice your body feels tight. Step 2, go to your calm down corner. Step 3, choose a sensory tool. Step 4, take 5 deep breaths. Breaking it down into manageable steps makes the process predictable and less daunting. Visual schedules and transition supports are lifesavers for many families. These can be as simple as a whiteboard with pictures representing the day's routine: breakfast, get dressed, playtime, lunch. Using timers or visual countdowns for transitions is also incredibly helpful. For example, setting a timer for 5 minutes before it's time to leave the playground gives the child a clear, predictable warning, which helps them prepare mentally and emotionally for the change. This reduces anxiety and the meltdowns that often accompany unexpected transitions. You can also use emotion journals or self-monitoring tools. These help children track their feelings over time. It doesn't have to involve writing. They can use stickers, draw pictures, or color in a mood tracker each day. This practice encourages them to notice patterns. They might realize they often feel anxious before school or frustrated during homework time. Over time, this self-monitoring builds metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking, which is a powerful skill for lifelong emotional regulation. And of course, in our digital age, there are interactive tools. Many apps and games are designed to help kids identify emotions and practice coping strategies in an engaging way. Some apps might have a drag-and-drop feature to match feelings to faces, or gamify the process of trying a new calming technique. For tech-savvy kids, this can be a highly motivating way to learn these essential skills. Okay, so you have these amazing tools. How do you actually use them in your daily life? The key is integration. Visual supports aren't just for crisis moments. They should be woven into your family's routine. Let's start with the home environment. You could create a dedicated calm down corner or cozy corner. This is a safe space where your child can go when they feel overwhelmed. Equip this corner with an emotion chart, a basket of sensory tools like fidgets or a weighted blanket, and a visual guide for calming strategies. Make it a positive, inviting space, not a punishment zone. You can also incorporate daily check-ins. At breakfast, you could use a mood chart and ask, "How are you feeling about today?" This opens up a conversation and helps you anticipate any challenges ahead. It's also crucial to collaborate with your child's school. Consistency is everything. Share the visual tools that work at home with your child's teacher. If you use a certain color system for emotions, ask if they can use the same one in the classroom. When the language and symbols are consistent between home and school, it creates a predictable and emotionally safe environment for your child, reducing the chances of overload. Don't forget about community and social settings. Outings can be stressful. You can create a small portable set of emotion cards that your child can carry in a pocket or on a keychain. This allows them to communicate their feelings non-verbally when you're at the grocery store or a crowded park. Practice using these tools in low-stakes situations first to help them generalize the skills to more challenging environments. Remember, visual tools are most powerful when combined with co-regulation. This means you're not just handing your child a chart and walking away, you are their guide. In a moment of stress, you might sit with them and say, "Let's look at the chart. It looks like you're in the red zone. I'm here with you." While they point to the feeling, you can model calm breathing or offer a hug or a tactile object. You are using the visual tool as a bridge to connect with them and regulate together. Over time, this process helps children build self-monitoring and reflection skills. You can use the visual tools to have reflective conversations after an emotional storm has passed. You might use an emotion journal and ask, "What strategy did you use to calm down?" Or, "What helped you feel better?" This helps them learn from their experiences and make more informed choices about coping strategies in the future. Let's walk through a few practical examples. For a morning check-in, you could use a mood meter. Point to the color that shows how your body feels this morning. Then you can problem solve together. You're feeling a little yellow. What could help you have a green day? Should we pack your noise-canceling headphones for school? For a tricky transition, like starting homework, you can use a visual checklist. Step 1. Put away toys. Step 2. Get out your pencil. Step 3. Take 3 deep breaths. You might offer a weighted lap pad for sensory input and guide them through the first step. Then slowly fade your support as they become more independent. And after a meltdown, once everyone is calm, you can gently revisit the experience using visuals. Use an emotion chart to help them identify what they were feeling. Then, look at a visual guide of calming strategies and talk about what you could try next time. This turns a difficult moment into a learning opportunity, free from shame or blame. The long-term benefits of consistently using these tools are immense. Your child will develop a richer emotional vocabulary. They'll internalize coping strategies and become more self-regulated. Their communication will improve because they have a clear way to express their needs. And ultimately, you'll see a reduction in conflict and emotional overload because you're proactively creating a supportive, predictable world for them. To sum it up, visual tools are a powerful way to transform invisible, confusing emotions into something concrete and manageable for neurodivergent kids. By implementing charts, guides, and schedules, and combining them with your loving support and co-regulation, you are giving your child a scaffold to build lasting emotional competence, confidence, and independence. Welcome back to our series on supporting neurodivergent children. We've covered so much ground, from understanding alexithymia and emotional overload to the power of co-regulation and visual supports. Now, it's time for the final, most crucial step: integration. This is where we bring everything together, weaving all these strategies into the fabric of daily life. The goal is to create a consistent, predictable, and supportive environment where your child can not only manage their emotions, but truly thrive. Integration isn't about adding more tasks to your day. It's about creating a smarter, more intentional structure. Think of it like building a house. You have the foundation, the walls, the roof, all separate components. Integration is the process of putting them all together to create a safe, functional, and comfortable home. For our children, this means combining our knowledge of their unique emotional experiences with practical, everyday tools. It's about making emotional regulation a natural part of their routine, not just a response to a crisis. This comprehensive approach ensures that the skills they learn are not just concepts, but functional tools they can use at home, at school, and out in the world. For us as parents and caregivers, it means creating a rhythm that prevents overload, supports regulation in the moment, and gently guides our children toward independence. The cornerstone of this entire approach is predictability. Neurodivergent children often find comfort and safety in routine. When they know what to expect, their cognitive and emotional load is significantly reduced. They don't have to spend precious energy trying to figure out what's coming next, which frees them up to manage their internal world. This is why structured daily routines are so powerful. Simple things, like a consistent morning and evening check-in to talk about feelings, can make a huge difference. Scheduling regular sensory breaks, using visual timers for transitions, and keeping the sequence of tasks predictable all contribute to a feeling of safety. This consistency doesn't just prevent unexpected stress, it gives your child a predictable framework to proactively practice their coping skills. They can anticipate a tricky part of their day and prepare for it, which is a massive step towards self-regulation. Now let's talk about layering your supports. No single strategy is a magic bullet. The real power comes from combining them. Imagine you're helping your child get ready for school. You might have a visual schedule showing each step. Get dressed, eat breakfast, brush teeth. That's your visual support. While they're getting dressed, you might notice they're getting a bit frustrated with a button. You can then use co-regulation, maybe by offering a calm voice, acknowledging their frustration, and modeling how to take a deep breath. At the same time, you might have a chewy fidget nearby for them to use while they wait for breakfast. That's your sensory support. And for the task of brushing teeth, you could have a timer to provide cognitive support, clearly defining the start and end of the activity. By layering these supports, you're addressing your child's needs on multiple levels: cognitive, emotional, and sensory, all at once. This multi-pronged approach is far more effective and builds a robust support system. Of course, integration must be flexible and individualized. Every child is different. What works wonders for one might not work for another. A child who loves bright colors might be energized by a vibrant emotion chart, while another might find it overstimulating and prefer a simple black and white version. One child might find a weighted blanket deeply calming, while another prefers the light pressure of a compression shirt. The key is to be an observer and a collaborator. Pay attention to your child's cues. When do they start showing signs of arousal? What seems to calm them down? Adjust your strategies based on their unique sensory profile, emotional threshold, and coping style. This flexibility ensures that the supports you're providing are responsive and meaningful, which makes your child much more likely to engage with them and adopt them long-term. So, how do we build this into a daily framework? Let's start with the morning. A great day often begins with a great morning. Instead of rushing through the routine, take a moment for a morning check-in. Use a simple visual tool, like a mood chart with colors or emojis, and ask, "How are you feeling this morning?" Or, "Which color matches your energy today?" This simple act validates their feelings from the get-go. Then you can plan together. It looks like we have a big day with a trip to the store. What's one tool we can pack in your go bag to help if it gets noisy? This proactive planning sets a regulated and predictable tone. For children who wake up already feeling a bit wobbly, offer some gentle co-regulation, like doing a few stretches together or modeling a few slow, deep breaths. This sets the stage for a day of teamwork and connection. Throughout the day, transitions and tasks can be major triggers for overload. This is where your visual schedules and timers become your best friends. They make a transition predictable and less abrupt. When your child is facing a big task like homework, break it down into smaller, manageable steps using a visual checklist. This prevents them from feeling overwhelmed by the whole mountain of work. During these cognitively demanding times, make sure sensory supports are readily available. Maybe it's a wiggle cushion for their chair, some noise-reducing headphones, or a favorite fidget. And always, always keep an eye out for those early signs of overload. A tapping foot, a clenched jaw, a change in voice tone. When you see it, intervene early. Acknowledge what you see. It looks like this math problem is feeling tricky. Then, co-regulate. You might just sit with them, offer a hand on their shoulder, or guide them through a calming strategy. This prevents the small spark of frustration from turning into a wildfire. Social interactions are another area where integrated supports are vital. Before a playdate or a family gathering, you can use visual tools to prepare. You might review a social story about sharing or look at an emotion chart and talk about how they might feel during the event. During the interaction, you can use discrete co-regulation cues. A gentle tap on the arm, a prearranged hand signal that means, "I need a break," or a quiet prompt to take a breath can help them navigate the sensory and emotional complexity of being with others. Afterward, it's all about reflection. Use an emotion journal or just have a chat. Ask questions like, "What part of the playdate felt fun?" or "Which of your calming tools helped when you felt a bit overwhelmed?" This reflection helps them connect their actions to outcomes, building both self-regulation and social skills. Now, what happens when an overload does occur? Because it will, and that's okay. The goal isn't to prevent every meltdown, but to have a clear, supportive plan for when they happen. After the storm has passed and your child is calm, it's time for a gentle debrief. Using visual aids, help them connect the dots. Let's look at the feeling chart. It seems like you felt a huge amount of anger. Where did you feel that in your body? Help them identify the trigger. Then, use visual guides to review and practice calming strategies. This is not about blame. It's about learning. You might encourage them to draw about the experience or write it down in a journal. This reflective practice is what turns a difficult moment into a powerful learning opportunity, equipping them to handle similar situations better in the future. As caregivers, we can follow a clear, step-by-step process. First, observe the early cues. Become a detective of your child's unique stress signals. Second, validate their emotion. Words like, "I see you're feeling frustrated," are incredibly powerful. Third, offer visual and sensory supports. Point to the emotion chart or hand them their favorite fidget. Fourth, model regulation yourself. Take a visible, audible deep breath. Fifth, guide them in choosing a strategy. It looks like your body is very activated. Would stretching or a tight hug help more right now? Sixth, and this is key, fade your support gradually. As they get better at using their tools, step back and let them take the lead. And finally, always reflect and reinforce. Celebrate their successes, no matter how small. I saw you noticed you were getting frustrated and you went to your quiet corner. That was amazing problem solving. Over time, this integrated approach empowers your child in incredible ways. They learn to recognize their own emotions, select coping strategies independently, and communicate their needs more effectively, whether with words, gestures, or visual cards. They become more confident navigating the world because they have a toolkit they can rely on. Your role shifts from being the primary regulator to being their supportive coach, cheering them on as they build resilience. The long-term benefits are profound. You'll likely see a reduction in the frequency and intensity of overload. Your child's emotional literacy, their ability to understand and name their feelings, will blossom. This structure also supports executive functions like planning and problem-solving. And because they can manage their own state better, their social relationships often improve. Most importantly, they develop resilience, a deep-seated confidence in their ability to handle stress and navigate life's inevitable challenges. To sum it all up, building a daily emotional regulation framework is about integration. It's about weaving together awareness of alexithymia, strategies for overload, the connection of co-regulation, and the clarity of visual and sensory supports. By embedding these strategies into your daily routines, transitions, and interactions, you create a holistic, predictable, and incredibly effective support system. This is how we move beyond just managing difficult moments and start building a foundation for lifelong emotional well-being and independence. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this gives you a clear path forward for integrating these powerful strategies into your family's life. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit. See you in the next video.